Okay, today we are going to try an acrylic with flowers, or doing flowers with acrylic. I've gone ahead, I'm going to use some purple, some pink, some blue, just kind of a royal blue, a light blue, a darker green, and a lighter green, and then some white. Now I'm going to try it on just some, it's called Bristol paper, but it's harder than cardstock, but it's really similar to cardstock, and I'm just going to see how that works with acrylics and show you how it can be done so that you don't need to keep getting all these canvases. But if you want to do this one on canvas, it's a great one to do on canvas. It would be what I would, recommend, but I want to show you how you can do it and just how to adapt to using a different paper. So this one, I've just gone ahead and I've already started, just to save time. I've drawn some circles and I've done 7 circles, just kind of randomly. Hopefully you can see that. And then I've added just kind of a little sketch of a vase, but just so that I knew how big to make the circles and everything like that. You don't necessarily need to do that, but if you want to kind of get an idea of where everything will be. Now again, with acrylics, we like to usually start with, and don't forget your paper towel and your water, but when you're using like a cardstock or a Bristol paper, you don't want to use as much water because they will start warping up. Another thing that you can do to prevent it from warping up is you can tape it to like this board that I have. And if you tape all the sides, then it usually keeps it down so that it doesn't curl up. And I'm not going to do that this time, but we're going to, if you want it to keep flat, I would recommend doing that. So I'm gonna just go ahead, and my brush is completely dry. I have not even added water to it at all. And I'm dipped it into some purple, and we're just gonna do, if you saw the post I did of just the twirly flowers, that's what we're just gonna do, is just circles in, circles out, and we're gonna just do it very sporadically. You can reverse the direction if you want. Now this flower I'm gonna have being behind that one, so I'm just gonna go through and try to let that one, you want one, but it doesn't really matter. If you want to do this one out in front, it's fine too. But again, you're just taking that brush and making circles. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be a certain way. You can just kind of draw some spirals. And again, we're going to do the same thing on this one. Now you'll find if you're just using regular paper, you aren't going to be able to blend your colors on canvas like you have before. And you'll notice that they're drying a lot faster. Now, if I was smart about this, I would have realized that I should have probably started with my top flower, because now I'm gonna be dragging my arm through all the paint, but that's doable. And again, just around, round, change direction, do a little smaller, and then around. Just kind of get where you want them to be. again, I have not used any water. I've just used directly the paint. Because the more water you use, the more you're going to have a, your paper's gonna wet too much if you're using just regular paper. If you're using the canvas, you'll want to use some water. Okay, so without even changing, I'm not even rinsing my brush, but I'm just gonna dab into some of this pink and add kind of a layer of the pink to this flower. And you can even dip your paintbrush into the purple and the pink at the same time. And it will kind of blend on the brush. And try not to do downward strokes like I just did, because that will make it change the look of the flower. So always keep it kind of a round flow. And you can alternate back and forth between colors. And you can see that it's not blending near as much. It's almost like you're using a marker or something. It dries a lot faster. So if you want to try to get some blending in, like I'm trying to show you here, you want to do it while it's still wet as it can be. But again, you don't want to add water. You want to do it as dry as possible. Okay, so then I'm going to go up here, do the same thing, keep it and I kind of like the feathery look to these flowers. Now you'll want to remember that on these flowers, they are, again, you'll want to do like, okay, here's where the sun is coming through. So you'll want to do a lighter part of your flower and a darker part of your flower. Now you can also do these in watercolor, and you can just let the colors bleed into each other, which would give you this really pretty blended effect as well. So you can just try different, sometimes it's fun to use the same method and try different mediums and then see how different they end up looking. But for these, you know, they're just supposed to kind of be sloppy, which makes them super easy. Okay, so I'm gonna let that dry for a little bit. And I'm gonna rinse out my brush, but I'm going to, this time, dry out my brush really good. I don't want it wet again. I want it as dry as can be for when we started. Let that just kind of dry for a little bit. But I don't want it to dry too much because I'm going to start adding some white into this flower and add some highlights. So I kind of want it to blend. And if you're feeling like it's blending too much, let it dry a little bit more. Just kind of add some white here and there. And And usually I say make it feathered out, make it smooth, but with these flowers we kind of want to see the strokes. We're going for a messy, kind of strokey look. Okay, now I'm gonna rinse my brush again and dry. And for some reason, this one down here, I don't like that line, so I'm just gonna go through and add that right there. Okay, so we're gonna let this dry again, and you can see that it's kind of starting to bulge up a little bit, and that's okay. You can always, after you're done and this is dried, you can put it in between two heavy books to flatten it if you want. We're gonna go ahead and kind of let the flowers, we still have a little bit more to do on the flowers, but we're gonna just let them set for a minute, and we're gonna start with some leaves. And I'm gonna start again with the dark color of green that I have, and I'm just gonna add some leaves down. And again, we don't want perfection. We want it kind of to be messy and more just kind of a gesture that you know that they're leaves, but they're not very detailed leaves. And leaves just are up one side, down the other. And again, my brush is very dry. And I'm just gonna kind of take some leaves that kind of maybe look like different leaves, and we're gonna kind of fill in right here with some leaves that were hidden behind the other flowers. Fill those in. And you want it to be asymmetrical. You don't want this to look like one side matches the other. You definitely want it to be very lopsided-y, not perfect. Okay, I'm gonna go through, and you can see that I haven't filled them in. I've left them kind of feathery, and just kind of gotten a basic idea. Now, again, I'm not gonna rinse my, in fact, I'm just looking here. I think I want something right over here, just so it kind of balances out. Okay, so I'm not going to rinse my brush, but I'm just gonna take that lighter green, and it's not too much of a lighter green, but just enough of a difference that I can go in and fill some of this in. And you see, I kind of, instead of on the tip of my brush, I'm kind of doing the leaves a little bit with the side of my brush at some points, just to kind of change up the angle. And then in here, fill this kind of in. And you want to just keep adding where you feel like there needs to be some. But again, this one, we are definitely not doing a detailed picture. We are just kind of doing kind of a resemblance. This one's not going to look like a photograph when we're done. They call this more a loose painting, when you just kind of let it be blurry instead. I tend to be more of a tighter painter. I like to have it more tight and more detailed, but this one, we're just gonna do the opposite. So now I'm just gonna come in and add some white here and there, just to some parts that I feel like need a little bit more color, blend it in. You can also have the white of your canvas or your paper show through. Okay, and I'm rinsing out my brush again, and I'm gonna let that sit for just a little bit, and we're gonna work on a vase. So the vase, I'm going to take my lightest color, and I'm going to, of blue, my lightest color of blue, and I'm just going to kind of draw the edge of the vase. And just very lightly down both sides. Like so. Kind of do outline of a vase, but our vase is going to be clear, so we don't want to have it be too much of a line, but we are going to go ahead and we're going to rinse our paintbrush and make sure, again, if you're using a paper, not a canvas, you want to get that paintbrush really dry. And we're going to add in the stems now. We're just gonna pull down just a line, take it at the top, and pull down. Line at the top, and pull down. So start at the top, come down. Then you're gonna wanna come in with that lighter green again and kind of fill in more at the top, because I want that to look like it's full. Okay, and we're gonna kind of leave it a little bit blurry down here because this is where the water is hitting. And you might want to take some of these top and make sure that they touch the flower. Okay, just so that there's not a line there. Okay, go ahead and rinse your brush again. And we're gonna come back with that light blue again. And we're gonna draw kind of the back of the where the water is filled. So it's gonna be just kind of an arc. If you just do an arc, and then we're gonna come in front here. And then we're gonna bring the water down. We're gonna leave a little bit. It's gonna be darker over here at the back of the vase. And then we're gonna leave a little blank, and then we're gonna bring the water down, like in strokes like this. And then we're gonna kind of have this bottom here. It's gonna be a little bit more dark. And then we're gonna bring the lines up. Again, very detail, or very dry and not too much detail. We're just gonna let it look like there is some water in there and some reflection. Now I'm gonna take a little bit of white, and I'm gonna take where that blue is, and I'm just kind of blend it. I want to just kind of make it look smooth. Now this part, we're kind of going for more smooth right there where the water is. So on both sides of the vase, we're gonna wanna make it smooth and then bring it down. And up here where now the vase is actually over the leaves, we need to make some lines so that you know that the stems are actually in the vase. So we're gonna draw over there a little bit. And they're gonna kind of blend. That's okay, because you're gonna be able to see the color in there, but not in too much detail. And you're just gonna draw lines down. Make sure, it's important to keep your strokes kind of going down. And again, on both sides. Blend that in. Okay, now I'm just gonna rinse my brush. You don't really necessarily need to, but I'm gonna come in with a darker blue and start at the bottom and kind of make an edge. Because if this is a clear vase, it's gonna have some reflection, and it's gonna be reflecting some of the colors all around it. And again, we're just gonna kind of do the same thing on both sides. And we're gonna have a little spot right here that's gonna go down and have some reflection as well. And this time I'm kind of going back and forth horizontally instead of vertically lines, just so it looks like that water is sitting in there. And we still have the water showing in the back. I'm gonna take a little bit of this dark blue along the sides here, just where the vase is, because it's going to be kind of a shadow. And I'm also going to take some of that purple, because it's going to be, this glass vase is going to be reflecting some of that purple from the flowers as well. We're just going to kind of add some hints of purple here and there. And then we're gonna go ahead and kind of do just the bottom. We're gonna just make it be sitting on a table that so it's not just floating in the air. If you don't want to do a table though, you can just leave it without the table. Going to make this table. And if you decide to make your table a different color, you want to go ahead and probably put some of that color into the glass reflection rather than just noticed I did this too high over here, so I gotta fix it. Rather than the blue, you would want to use up here, you would maybe, like if you made it a green or something, or a yellow, or you would have some reflection from that table. I'm just gonna go ahead. And again, this is gonna be more, I don't want it to be smooth this time, which is very different than what I normally do. And then I'm gonna take some of that purple back in here, and I'm gonna make the shadow. It's gonna have a little bit of a shadow on this side. All right, and I'm just gonna kind of fill in a little bit. You can take some of that light blue to add in just to kind of blend it if you want. But again, we kind of want some strokes in this one. Okay, and the last thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take some of my blue, my dark blue, and I'm just gonna kind of make an inside dots where, like the inside of a flower usually has their little seeds. And I want to do that when it's kind of dry because I don't want them to blend. And then I'm gonna take just some of that light blue and add some little dots here, there. And we'll call it good. There is your flowers in a vase. And here it is. You can see that it hasn't warped too much because I hardly used any flowers, or any water on it. Did it very dry. If you want, I'm just noticing that there's some spots here that still kind of are white that I can go through and just add some green to here and there, just to make it look like it's actually a filled in vase. And there you have it. Hope you enjoy it. Make sure you send me pictures. I would love to see it. Oh, one other thing that you can do too on the outside is if you want to add, you can take some little dots and just kind of make it look like some other flowers are on the outside if you want, here and there. And again, I have a little bit of purple, a little bit of pink, and I'm just adding some dots here and there. Nothing really specific, but just to kind of look like it's full. Maybe just some right over here, and we'll call it good. All right, there you have it. Hope you enjoy it.